44% of athletes competing at Olympic level competition have used banned performance enhancements at some point in their career, yet only 1% have been caught. So if you're winning silver at the Olympics, you will always question if the guy who won gold or girl who won gold was using performance enhancements. So instead of this unfair, dishonest playing field, let's do it all out in the open. Honestly and transparently create an efficient financial structure so that we can be profitable and pay the athletes well.
Aron, we are so excited to have you here. First, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on your show.
I would love to start with a little bit of context. So for everyone watching and listening, what are the Enhanced Games and how do you describe it when you sit at a dinner party and say, I run the Enhanced Games?
The Enhanced Games are the third Olympiad. So the first Olympic Games was in ancient Greece. It was a pagan celebration every 4 years where only men could compete. They were all naked. And then that idea was reinvented in 1896 by Baron Pierre de Coubertin, who's a French aristocrat, who reinvented the world of sports for his era. And now in this era of science and of technology, we're reinventing the Olympiad for the third time to create something new, where we believe in science, we believe in technology, and we believe in the future. And that's what the Enhanced Games is.
What does the belief in science then incorporate into this third Olympiad that the second doesn't allow?
Ultimately, it's performance-enhancing drugs, but it's so much more than that. Think about the technologies that we are on the parapet of, whether it's CRISPR gene editing, brain-computer interface, AR, VR, all these technologies can be and will be useful in sports. But if you truly believe in a natural sporting environment, like the Olympics does, you reject technology, you reject social change. And so we want to build a games that embraces technology, and the start of that is pharmacological enhancements, but there's so much more, and so much more that will inspire hope in an optimistic view of technology into the future.
There's one thing that's been really interesting to me is I've kind of looked into this pre-show, and that's been the terminology and how you actually talk about enhancement and the use in particular of the word doping, which a lot of the other words you have kind of an alternative for. Doping, you have no alternative for.
I think doping should be erased from our language because it implies a very strong value judgment. Is a cyclist who uses EPO doping? Yes, according to the World Anti-Doping Authority, but is a cyclist who's using an altitude tent to increase their hemoglobin count in the same way, which is almost bioidentical to using EPO. Is that doping? And the current code, no, it isn't. And so doping implies a value judgment. And we are attempting to make cultural change. And at the core of our culture is our language. And so if you master language, you master the world.
What other words would you like to start changing within that terminology piece that the Olympics, again, utilizes to try and maintain its core fundamentals and its ethics that you don't agree with?
Well, the Olympics want to use a certain terminology and rule set, not just to maintain its values, but maintain its monopoly on power. So the Olympics are the self-appointed United Nations of sports. It is the ultimate governing body for all sports. Even if you're a powerful governing federation like FIFA, you still have to report to the IOC if you want your sport included in the Olympics. The Olympics are a monopoly of power that is unaccountable to anyone. And so I like to always say that competition is very healthy. The Olympics are the ultimate platform for human competition, but the IOC has never had any competition. And so we are creating competition which will make the IOC healthier and make the world of sport more transparent, honest, and efficient.
What sports are included in the Games? Because it's not everything that the Olympics offers, is it? You've very specifically tailored the events.
Yeah, so the problem about the Olympic Games is an infrastructural one. They have all these sports that no one watches. And so, sorry, modern pentathlon or bobsled or curling, these are infrastructurally expensive sports, and they have little to no television and social media impact. And so the core problem about the Olympic Games is that they build a dozen stadiums and then they throw them away after 2 weeks. And that's why the Olympics cost tens, if not sometimes $100 billion to put on. It can literally bankrupt countries. And so we wanted to create a better model of sports, and we began by asking the question, what are the sports with the lowest infrastructural cost that have the highest television and social media impact? And so that's track and field, swimming and diving, gymnastics, combat sports, and weightlifting. 5 sports that can be run without any specialist infrastructure, and so it will cost us millions of dollars, not billions of dollars, to deliver the enhanced games. And then we can use those profits to pay the athletes. And this is another really important point that gets lost so often in discussions with journalists, is that they say this is the Olympics plus drugs. Well, no, this is the Olympics plus drugs and money. I believe that excellence deserves to be rewarded, and that athletes who are the highest level of their sport should be rewarded for that opportunity.
Can I just ask on that? I think people look at a lot of athletes today that they see winning gold medals and coming second and third, participating in these amazing events, and think they get paid very well. What is the current state of play in terms of pay for the world's best athletes in these different sports?
So if you're a medalist from the United Kingdom, you effectively get nothing. But even if you're not a medalist, you get nothing. And in the United States, Australia, and the UK, the average Olympian lives in poverty. So the average British Olympian earns less than £30,000 a year. That's gross. So they're paying often for their own training, clinical support, equipment, etc. And it's really, really tough.
I'm sorry for being naive, but I'm sure a lot of listeners will also have the same thing, which is, so with the enhanced games, are we saying, hey, you're woefully underpaid, you're incredibly talented, come to the enhanced games, be paid justly, be appreciated in a similar way, hopefully, and actually earn what you're owed?
And compete in a fair environment. So according to some scientific research, 44% of athletes competing at Olympic level competition have used banned performance enhancements at some point in their career, yet only 1% have been caught. So if you're winning silver at the Olympics, you will always question if the guy who won gold or girl who won gold was using performance enhancements. So instead of this unfair, dishonest playing field, let's do it all out in the open, honestly and transparently, and create an efficient financial structure so that we can be profitable and pay the athletes well. So we want to educate the world about enhancements. They're not scary. They're technologies, they're medical technologies that will enable us to live longer, healthier, happier lives. And the same compounds that allow athletes to jump high and run fast are the same compounds that will make aging a disease that we can treat, cure, and eventually solve. And so we do want to use the enhanced games as an avenue to educate the world about the potential of human enhancement.
My concern when first reading about it, I like many people, I think, where your mind runs immediately is the health.
Yeah.
And I've seen a huge amount of what you talk about as being the kind of safer sports environment. So with the regulation that you'll be able to work with now, with the management of these athletes and the programs, I guess, for enhancements that they go on, how are you able to make that a safer space through this? Is there still a threshold that you will have that these athletes take, or is it very much my body, my decision?
It's not a free-for-all. And ultimately, insurers, regulators would not allow it to be a free-for-all. And so the Olympics drew an arbitrary line, really in the 1970s, and said, on this side, you are ethical, you are natural. And on the other side, you are unethical, you are a cheater, you are a bad person, you are enhanced. And we're just moving that line. And we're going to move that line every year, right? We're going to progress technology and science just like Formula One has. The Formula One cars have gotten lighter, faster, and safer every year because of technological improvements. And so ultimately, I believe that individuals with free and informed consent should make decisions about their own body. But we have to do so within a framework that ensures that athletes are safe. And so what I always say is that the World Anti-Doping Authority and the International Olympic Committee have designed a fairness testing system. Their whole ambit is about testing athletes for the guise of fairness. Lance Armstrong can't use the super steroids when others don't have access to it. And what are we doing? We're creating a safety testing system to ensure that our athletes are healthy and safe to compete. So what does that mean? We do full system health checkups, blood work, echocardiograms, maybe even MRIs. And we use that imaging to determine if they're healthy and safe to compete. Because I don't want an athlete to be sick or injured as a result of an enhancement protocol, because we want to educate the world and show the world that enhancements can be safe, just like they're done in Hollywood, normalize the fact that we can overcome the limits of our biology.
We said about the word doping and like how we should have it erased, and when we talk about enhancements, again, sorry for the naivety, but like, what are enhancements that one would take? Just, I think it's helpful to context that for people. Like, is that things like coffee? Is that things like
testosterone? So you might see advertisements on your Instagram for testosterone replacement therapy, known as TRT. We're here in Marylebone. You could walk about a couple hundred meters down the road to Harley Street. Every doctor there will prescribe that to you. And TRT would get him banned from any sporting competition. He wouldn't be allowed to run the London Marathon because that is technically a drug-tested event.
So when you're recruiting athletes, how do you pitch to them? What's the sell? Because you don't have to be enhanced to compete, do you?
No, you can be a natural athlete, and many natural athletes are very excited to come and compete because they believe that they're genetically superior. They won the lottery, and that they can beat these enhanced athletes. And I hope they do come, because it will make for very compelling television.
Can you coexist in a world of dual competition where you participate in an Olympic Games and you can participate in the Enhanced Games? Is that something that you actually see as a very legitimate opportunity?
I hope it's a very legitimate opportunity, and we wouldn't stop that in any way. I think Lord Sebastian Coe and his cronies at the International Olympic Committee might want to stop that. But I would encourage them, as I did on the BBC last week, to look up US antitrust law. So they will probably get themselves into a PGA Live Golf style situation.
Do you see yourself as being that kind of disruptor type organization, like a Live Golf to a PGA? Because from my perspective, yes, it is disruptive, but you actually, as you see, you're changing the landscape.
Yeah, we were more like what Uber was to the taxi cabs, right? The taxis are this fossilized incumbent monopoly. They didn't change. They didn't believe in technology. They were very comfortable in their deep regulatory mode. And then a business like Uber comes along. And remember, Travis was threatened with a 150-year prison sentence by the city of New York in the early days. It was illegal, right? And the names that Travis was called was pretty extraordinary. But now today, Uber's a $168 billion company. And Dara's not thinking about taxi cabs. It's just an option on the app. He's thinking about drones. He's thinking about scooters, last mile, self-driving cars. And we're moving past the Olympics. We've gotten so much traction and interest from broadcasters, from athletes, from sponsors, and particularly from venture capitalists, that now we have the potential to well surpass the Olympics.
At what stage do you think you see a tipping point where you have so many people say, yeah, I want to do this, that actually it becomes not a taboo, and I don't mean that rudely, but not even a thing that you're doing it, well, of course you are. At what stage does it become natural?
Well, it'll never be natural. It will always be enhanced.
Commonplace.
Wrong wording.
Commonplace. Yeah.
When we break the world records, in the 100 meter, the marathon, the mile, the 50 freestyle, and the pool, and when we break them safely and openly, because I think athletes will say, you know what, I want to be the fastest man in the world. I don't want to be the fastest natural man in the world in some old arbitrary standard. And I think cities, broadcasters, sponsors, and fans will say, I just want to see the fastest. And then will a city say, oh, I'm going to pay $100 billion to host the old, slow Olympics? I don't think they will.
People aren't always the best, maybe, regulators of their own decisions. So is there a concern? Is there a concern that if this becomes commonplace and the athletes that you're putting at the pinnacle of this project and then become the celebrities that we see so much of in modern sport now, inspire a generation that aren't operating within the very confined, safe world that you're creating for those top competitors, and can't necessarily get the support that you offer, making it more dangerous for those in communities that are fans rather than professionals? Is that a concern?
No, absolutely not. I think actually quite the opposite. You can make the argument that Formula One encourages young men in particular to drive fast and recklessly. And that could lead to accidents on the road. And I don't think that's true at all. I think Formula One actually encourages young men to respect the craft of motorsport. It encourages all people to pursue careers in engineering, which has proven to be a very economically important cluster in this country. And in the same way, I think the Enhanced Games is going to inspire our young people to believe in science and to believe in medicine and pursue much needed careers in STEM. Because ultimately, science is real, technology is here, and this is just an extraordinary platform to show it. And the goal here is clinical supervision. And we see our heroes in Hollywood, superheroes, people played by the best actors, and they're clearly enhanced. And no one's having there's no epidemic of actors and actresses falling ill. Why is that? Because they go down to Rodeo Drive. They get the best doctors and clinical support to oversee them. And that's what, by removing this taboo, the Enhanced Games will make to the entire world.
It's something you're obviously, clearly very passionate about, to create something like this and take it to the global stage. Where does that come from your side? What makes this the project that you decided to take on individually?
I'm a problem solver. And I've actually been studying the International Olympic Committee for over 20 years. I wrote essays about it when I was an undergraduate. And I think there's something really special about the Olympics. And I think on the trajectory that the IOC is on, the Olympics won't exist in 20 years' time. You see,
why is that? Sorry.
It's just too expensive, right? So when you looked at this, 20 years ago, the Sydney Olympics, there would have been about a dozen cities that bid for the 2000 Olympics. And now it's to the point where no first-tier Western cities are bidding anymore. It's really just despotic third world nations or rising economies that are bidding for the Olympics as a way of raising their brand on an international level.
And so what, for the people that don't understand, why is that? Because it just simply costs too much money to host them? Because for people listening, they think, well, amazing for tourism, amazing for the country itself.
So the economic returns are always negative for the Olympics. There's never been really a case of the Olympics being profitable for a city to host.
And it is fascinating, because if you think about a city like London or a country like the UK, we have a lot of the existing infrastructure, from the stadiums to the transport links to the foundational. I cannot comprehend how it's a loss maker.
Security, that's why. So since the post 9/11 environment, the security apparatus to secure the Olympic Games is overwhelming for any country. And so the fundamental problem about the Olympics, like the World Cup, is that they move countries every 4 years. Versus something like Wimbledon, which uses the same infrastructure, it uses the same delivery, the same broadcast model year upon year, uses the same team, and can radically improve. And so Wimbledon is not dependent on taxpayer funding. It's actually quite a very profitable exercise for the All England Lawn Tennis Club. However, the Olympics are effectively creating a new delivery model every 4 years, and that's why it doesn't work.
And what we're talking about here, to be clear then, we're not talking about the taxpayer-funded sports model. We're talking about privately, commercially incentivized business.
That's right. Yeah, so a different kind of fandom. So the Olympic Games were invented, they were reinvented on a model manufactured in ancient Greece, reinvented by a racist French aristocrat in 1896 for that era, for an era before broadcast, before the airliner, before instantaneous communications. And so we're reinventing the Olympiad now, saying we live in a world of television and of social media, of platform disintermediation. We're sitting here in your beautiful studio here in London. You don't need a broadcaster. You don't need a network, right? Content creators are real, right? Content creators are in many ways more powerful than traditional celebrities, right? And so the removal of intermediate platforms is a very powerful tool for us. And as we design a games, we look to say, okay, we're focused on more sprint events because it fits a TikTok format and a TikTok business model.
I'm really interested in the conversations with the athletes. We touched on it. When you're going into these chats, are they understanding what you're pitching? Is this something they're very pleased to hear, because it's been a frustration of theirs for many years going through these systems which have the legacy and have everything that they probably grow up wanting to participate in, but when they get there, maybe pulls them slightly short of the reality that they've held
so when you
dear.
look behind the curtain of the Olympic movement, it isn't very pretty. And at the end of the day, I've talked to thousands of Olympians, and not a single one loves their sports federation or governing body. They feel like they're abused and exploited by these bureaucrats who earn giant salaries and have great job security, when the athletes, who are the principal value creators, are underpaid or not paid at all, and certainly underappreciated.
Is it not a loss leader? If we just apply it to other sectors, segments, whatever we call it, a lot of musicians say don't make actually nearly as much money as they did from their original content, which is why they do merch, it's why they have sponsors, brands, it's why they tour much more. And actually it's a core loss leader, which drives meta brand, and then you monetize meta brand with other things.
No, because the Olympics only happen once every 4 years, right? And so we live in a TikTok era, short attention spans. And so the Olympics are stuck into this legacy format, which is principally dedicated by the 4-year cycle in moving cities.
Yeah.
And for them to break out of that format, impossible. They'll never adjust from it.
I agree with that. So the replacement that you suggest is what?
At least an annual games, probably more frequently. One city or a distributed game. So there's no reason why the first enhanced games all has to be in one city. The swimming could be in Los Angeles, the track and field could be in New York, the gymnastics could be here in London, all unified through the beauty of television and social media.
How much does it cost to do one?
Double-digit millions.
Is that it?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, it's really cheap, right? When you're not building stadiums and then throwing them away after a few weeks, it's a very cost-efficient thing to do.
What about, so to talk us about, tell us about the James Magnuson type agreement, because this is one I'm really interested in, where it starts to, I think, move into the commercialization, like the proper commercialization and attractiveness, like we've seen in other sports, where there is a big pot of money available for extraordinary performance and achievement.
Yeah, and so James, I did his radio show 9 months ago for 2 minutes and then never spoke to him again. And then one day I'm sitting on my couch here in London, it's at 11:30 at night, I'm about to go to bed, and then I get 350 WhatsApp messages within like 20 minutes. And James went on to a national radio program in Australia and said that he would be interested in competing at the Enhanced Games. And I was like, cool. So then I dialed live into one of the major networks in Australia. He did too. I thought he was just making a joke. And we basically negotiated on live television for him to come and compete at the Enhanced Games. And he said he'll come and compete as long as there's $1 million prize to break the 50 freestyle world record. And we said, yep, we'll put that up.
And he is an athlete. I guess he's an athlete you'd describe, without being rude to him, end of his career cycle. So this as an opportunity becomes incredibly appealing to him where he is now at his stage. Do you feel that is replicable to athletes earlier on in their journey?
Well, the beautiful thing about enhancements is it extends careers for athletes, right? So aging is a disease that we should be able to treat, cure, and eventually solve. And, you shouldn't have to retire as a pro athlete at age 32, which is how old James is. And so we're going to extend James's career. We're going to extend his capability to earn and create a platform for him to do so on a global stage. And I think just think about this. When the first Enhanced Games comes and, the 100-meter race is the flagship for the Olympics, it's often among the top 100 sporting events or live broadcast events in history. But at the first Enhanced Games, it will be the opportunity for science to be unlocked for the first time. And so really we'll have a much, much larger audience. Will it be a level of the man on the moon or Nixon's resignation as some of the biggest television moments of all time? Because it is such a paradigm shift in the history of sports.
So I do agree, but I also think, especially in this world now, the celebritization of athletes and the individual power that they carry within sport, that drives the majority of interest and viewership now, as much as legacy sport. So from your perspective, let's go, everything you're saying can work, absolutely, but you need the biggest names to be able to sell this properly into the market. Do you have a strategy to achieve that?
Well, I'm very pleased to say that some of the largest venture capital funds in the world are throwing us term sheets, and we're in the process of negotiating with them. We're going to raise tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for this venture. And when you have incumbent athletes who are some of the biggest names in the world who have earned, at best, low single-digit millions, it will be very easy to capture them with pure economic incentives.
Yeah, this is one where cash alone can really be a weapon, huh?
Yeah, and the Olympics don't have that structure. But imagine you get to the Paris 24 Olympics, you've trained your entire life for that, and you get a silver medal, right? And the drop off of sponsorship from gold to silver is about 90%, and then 90% again from silver to bronze. And so, the guy who wins gold in the 100-meter is going to be sponsored by Nike and earn millions. The guy who earns silver might get some local national sponsors like NatWest or something like that. But the guy who earns bronze, it's probably going to be sponsored by his local hardware store.
And as we've seen many times before, the person that wins gold can then 6 months to a year later
Be disqualified.
be disqualified.
So imagine if you're an athlete and you've just won silver at the Paris Games. You say, you know what? I'm going to have my second chance, right? And this is the thing. And this is one of the core reasons, we're talking on a VC-focused podcast here, is why did I pick this industry to disrupt? It's because the Olympics only operate once every 4 years. In 25, 26, and 27, nothing will be happening for these athletes. These minor competitions like the Diamond League and the World Championships don't matter. And so we're going to give them a global platform that will allow them to monetize and build their fame in non-Olympic years.
Let's talk about the commercialization piece now as well. Broadcast commercialization of products, because that's something, again, that we've seen in other sports where we've had, I don't know whether breakaway again is, should we say a development of an opportunity in a product, then can't necessarily sell its broadcast rights to the level that the original legacy business can't get the commercialized sponsors in because of the associations previously. So how are you approaching broadcast and sponsorship?
Well, we've been inbounded by virtually every major broadcaster in the world for this. We've done no outbound. And if we get a contract worth 5% or even 10% of the Olympics, well, that's pretty good because the Olympic rights are worth about $4 billion a cycle.
$4 billion a cycle?
Yeah.
Where does all that cash go?
Private jets for the top Olympic officials. The IOC president literally lives in a palace. Armies of bureaucrats, giant waste in terms of the Olympic Broadcasting Authority. And they'll say that they distribute money to athletes, but it's really just, pork barrel to the National Olympic Committees and the international federations. Just waste upon waste, a deep state of sports bureaucrats. Have you ever gone to Lausanne, Switzerland? Tens of thousands of people employed in the Olympic organization and the sports federations on fat salaries. You'll see so many Mercedes-Benz limousines rolling around. You'd be shocked.
Wow, I did not know that. Yeah. Is there ever any stigma with brands around the Enhanced Games? I hear everything that we say, but for large brands, Coca-Cola, are they ever like, I don't know if there's any...
Well, I wouldn't want Coca-Cola as a sponsor. So Coca-Cola and McDonald's are the two longest serving Olympic sponsors.
It's quite ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sugar and fat.
And so, journalists love to skewer me and say, this is unsafe, it's unhealthy. It's like the two longest Olympic sponsors, at least in the United States, have done more damage to public health than any other entity in the entirety of human history. And if you want to talk about an addictive, damaging substance, it's sugar and processed food. And McDonald's and Coke built their brand on the back of the Olympics.
So positive brand association for you is important. Who are the types of companies that you see as really attractive to start bringing into this
technology companies? Technology companies and biotechnology companies that believe in technology and the future, right? So if you're Amazon Web Services, right, for example, there's no effective brand activation at these legacy sporting events, the old-fashioned backwards events. But imagine at the Enhanced Games, where soon BCI will be allowed, or AR goggles, right? This could be a real brand activation for these technology companies. Imagine a javelin thrower wearing an Apple Vision Pro goggle, right? Or a football team competing with real-time AI decision support, sponsored by OpenAI, right? It's a new kind of brand activation that doesn't exist at the moment.
I guess when we're talking about enhancement, it's enhancement of the entire project then. It's not just the enhancement of the individual athlete, it's the enhancement of the commercial experience for the brand, it's the enhancement of the audience and the fan, it's the enhancement of the performance that you see.
This is about enhancing humanity as a whole, because the technologies that are developed for the athlete will percolate to the wider world, just like in Formula One. Anti-lock braking, for example, was invented for Formula One and now is available on standard on virtually every car.
Harry and I have regular discussions / disagreements with people here around often great products, very poor distribution of their sport. So with this, are you really then going to incorporate? You've got the product you believe is going to sell and create all of that attention. The distribution, is it going to be, yes, it will have the linear and more traditional side to it, but it's also going to be driven then by the digital activations that you can do with various socials, short form content, etc.
Yeah, and so the core, so you guys are smart.
Thank you.
So Facebook does over $300 in ARPU per US user per year. Google, Snapchat, the other social media networks all do triple-digit numbers. The worst media outlets in the world in terms of monetization are, let's say, people like BuzzFeed. They do about $3 in ARPU. Manchester United is said to be the best monetizer in the best league in the world. How much ARPU do they do?
I'm trying to work back now. They're going to do, terribly, worse than BuzzFeed. Like $1.50?
This is one of the greatest brands in the world.
Take Manchester United's revenues and then take their fans.
Is it really Five.
It's actually $1.50. It's one British pound. It's a good job.
Boom!
Congrats.
That's why I'm a venture capitalist, baby.
And also you said that just after you were told you were really smart.
Good job. I'll give you.
Never got a degree, but I'm not bad.
I give you brownie points.
$1.50.
And why is this? Is actually because, if we want to talk about technology now, they have a systems integration problem. So the 60,000 fans who are in the stadium watching the game, Man U doesn't know who they are because those tickets were sold by Ticketmaster. The millions of fans who are watching on television, they don't know who they are because they're watching on Sky, right? To the advertisers, Man U has no relationship with them, right? So there's all these data disaggregation problems. And ultimately, Manchester United has no technological or software connectivity with its fans. And so I actually approach the whole Enhanced Games as a software challenge, right? I have a CTO. I have an engineering team. We will build and we will ship software. Name me a football club. Name me a sports federation that has a CTO that actually reports directly to the CEO.
So I've had this argument with a lot of owners of sports teams in the past on this show, and they say, well, we can do it, but it's like such a different mindset to adopt. And it just will not happen with the current infrastructure, I don't think, in all of these clubs
and the billionaires who buy sports teams are sorely misplaced because they think they're in control. But then they buy this, glamorous property, and then they realize, well, it's the players' union, it's the owners' committee, it's the sports federation, it's the governing body, it's the National Olympic Committee that is ultimately in control. And so they're only one small part of this wider equation. And to use a software analogy, we're building a fresh stack, right? And so from that fresh stack means that we can reduce and eventually eliminate data integration problems so that we can actually know our fans. We can directly engage with our fans and athletes, and we put those fans and athletes together and magic will happen.
How do you actually ensure data capture? How do you ensure that you know everyone who's watching, all their status, age, location? What does that look like in terms of owning the full vertical stack in terms of fan data?
That's a user acquisition challenge, right? So we have to get users to directly interact with us, or better yet, create a platform for our athletes to monetize through and use their intrinsic distribution to drive our distribution and connectivity with our own fans.
Do you start having conversations with them about this? Because this is a very different world to the one they were exposed to previously, and yet it's one that they can clearly actively improve, develop, and create huge value from.
Exactly, and retain that value well beyond their career. So I want our athletes to become like Michael Jordan, right? To have earning capacity and brand that will extend for decades or even centuries beyond his sporting career. And all of that is a software and an engagement problem. And the problem about the incumbent sports property owners, particularly the not-for-profit ones, is they don't have an incentive structure to drive this. They're just too happy with their broadcast revenues and corporate sponsorships and, sitting courtside, with the credentials around their neck, feeling very important. But they're not approaching this like a software problem.
I think the one thing I do love about legacy environments in sport, they prohibit innovation, right? And having the privatized model gives you that ability to have the control to develop. So if you're looking at this kind of structure now, and then you're putting on top the investor group, the access to capital that you're bringing in, what role do you see them playing in these organizations, as in this organization?
The investor group?
The investor group now coming in and helping you deliver privatized or independent sport.
A fresh sports stack.
A fresh sport.
Yeah, a fresh stack for sports. Well, I'm pleased to say that we have investors like Christian Angermeyer, Peter Thiel, Balaji Srinivasan, who have all been super hands-on. Christian and Peter and I have been friends for more than a decade, and Christian has works every day on this project. He's a co-founder of it, and to have someone of his magnitude, a self-made billionaire, who comes to the table every day bringing value. That's really important. That is much more valuable than any capital that it's actually the talented people, as we were talking about earlier. How do we find this extreme outlier talent? Because the next $1 trillion company, it will be built by 10 to 20 really super committed, extreme outlier talent.
Do you enjoy prodding the bear?
I enjoy solving problems. And the Olympics are amazing. I love them. But the IOC is a problem. And the system that they have designed is no longer suited for the modern world. And so I encourage them to change. And as I said, competition is very healthy. The Olympics are the ultimate form of human competition, but the IOC itself has never had competition.
So if they were to change, what should they change in the core pillars?
The members of the IOC should be elected by Olympians instead of them reappointing themselves. So the IOC is not accountable to its core constituency. That's the fundamental problem. It's a complete misalignment of incentives. And so what they should do is have an open election and have every Olympian elect all the members of the IOC and have a new, fresh governance structure.
Do you think that would change it? Or do you think that just puts different actors in the same institution?
No, because they would have to seek re-election on a fairly regular basis. You wouldn't have the sort of presidential style or imperial style governance structure. And there would be real accountability. And then the athletes would be able to share in the fruits of from the rivers of gold of broadcast revenues that are coming into the Olympics.
You still wouldn't probably be able to implement the enhanced model within that traditional infrastructure, even if you did do that.
I think it would be very hard, and I don't think even in that new governance model that the IOC could ship software, right? It takes a special kind of organization, right, as you guys well know, to build products that change the world.
When you talk to Peter Thiel type character then about this project, is that where that inspiration, that motivation from someone like him comes? The combination of the technology, software piece alongside, sports, the world's common economy, which is sporting endeavor.
I think Peter, Christian, Balaji all understand that all humans, whether they admit it or not, desire to be enhanced. And whoever is going to make synthetic growth hormones like testosterone or anabolic steroids safe, legal, and FDA approved, will be one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, because everyone wants to be enhanced. And you only need to look at Ozempic, which has added nearly $400 billion to the market capitalization of Novo Nordisk, is an enhancement. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that it's prescribed off-label in the United States 83% of the time. It's a diabetes drug that's mainly used by celebrities to get thin. And I believe that everyone has the right to be enhanced. And Ozempic is the first commonplace enhancement.
Do you think Ozempic is good?
Good in a moral way or good in a scientific way?
Does it not encourage people to realize that there is a quick, fast way to lose weight? Forget healthy eating and, actually going out and, gosh, heaven forbid, exercising. No, don't bother with that effort. Take the pill, we will curb your hunger and you will be thin. Great, there's a shortcut for that in life too. It is the ultimate sign of a lazy culture.
Okay, so get rid of your iPhone. Right, get rid of your automobile. Did you walk here today?
Yes, I did. I live around the corner. I literally live around the corner.
Fortunate for the venture capitalists who can afford to live in this neighborhood.
It's a lovely apartment. I enjoy it a lot. But this is a device that is used for learning and for productivity. I think it's completely different.
No, I think that we all should be able to use technology to its full potential, but not be forced to do so. So if you want to run, if you want to eat a very strict plant-based diet and count calories and be as natural a human as you wish to be, go ahead. But I think we're going down the route of transhumanism, that we can use technology to become something more than we are.
Pharmaceutical companies must love this idea because we're talking about democratizing the production, consumption of performance enhancers, right? That at the moment you would say are not commonplace within wider populations.
Yeah, that's right. And I think they're widely misunderstood because of the propaganda of the International Olympic Committee. And ultimately, these are technologies that will enable humans across the world, across income spectrums, to have longer, healthier, happier lives.
What do you think will be the biggest impactful one, or the most impactful ones? We mentioned some very important ones, whether it's CRISPR, whether it's AR, whether it's Neuralink. What do you think will be the most soon to impact sport in terms of technological developments that we will see in the enhanced games?
Some might be very commonplace. It's things like TRT or other anabolics.
So that's the low-hanging fruit.
That's low-hanging fruit because these compounds have been around for a century. They're very well understood.
And TRT is testosterone, right? Just to be, yeah.
However, maybe also very simple technologies that allow athletes to compete better. So in swimming, for example, one thing you might not know is that you can't actually hear the crowd. You have very little data as a swimmer about where your competitors are at. And so imagine a wireless waterproof headset where your coach can talk to you as you're swimming. It's something as simple as that, right? But actually, the one innovation that is going to enable the most world records to get broken is actually a very simple innovation. It's pay for athletes. So if athletes have financial security and they can train full-time and that they know that they have health insurance and that they have support before and during and after the games, they're going to perform better. And that's what's going to demolish the world records, much more so than pharmacological interventions will do.
Yeah, you may say, I'm hoping the answer actually is less obvious than this, but do you think moving into this that you will suddenly see people breaking that 9.58 Usain Bolt? Or do you think the reality is even the non-enhanced athletes now, you've got such a level of those complete outliers where performance just exceeded what was expected to be able to be done, that the enhancement or not, you're going to get incredible athletes.
Well, the argument,
regardless.
I won't comment on Usain Bolt specifically, but the argument is that virtually all the track and field world records were set by enhanced athletes.
Do you believe that?
I believe what scientists tell me. And the world's top scientists in this space all tell me that, in particular because some of them have worked on these athletes.
And they will say that the human body couldn't do that without
you take someone who is genetically extraordinary and add enhancements, and you end up with Olympic gold medals in track and field. That is the current formula.
One question I was just quite interested in was the accessibility of this at, should we say, more grassroots?
Yeah.
A lot of are we talking about a very first world program here? Are we looking at countries that can't necessarily access or afford a lot of the enhancements that we've talked through?
The most successful countries in the world are not the ones that spend the most in Olympic sport. So Team GB, for example, spends roughly £250 million to prepare for the Olympics. And Kenya gets more gold medals.
How much did Kenya spend?
Virtually nothing.
Oh, right? Wow, okay.
And so the US government spends virtually nothing because it's effectively a privatized system where most of the feeder infrastructure is through US college athletics. And so the idea that if government is spending huge amounts of money, it leads to more Olympic medals is actually not the case. So India spends huge sums now and wins virtually no medals. And so you're asking sort of the question, how do we overcome the health and income inequalities of the world, well, number one, I can't solve all the problems of the world. I wish I could solve global health inequalities. But by taking something out of the darkness and removing intermediaries, we're going to make enhancements cheaper, safer, and more effective. And that transparency will actually lead to more accessibility. And so the core problem today is not accessing the compounds. The compounds are all very cheap and mostly off patent. It's accessing high quality clinical supervision. And really the clinical supervision exists for billionaires, top athletes, and celebrities because they can pay for it. It exists in Harley Street and in Rodeo Drive. And so in due course, this openness about enhancements that we are creating will drive down costs because we are enabling data sharing and clinical partnerships.
What non-obvious event do you think will be the biggest hit? Like, do you think weightlifting will actually turn out to be the monster? Do you think it will be, or do you think it will be the obvious ones that will be the hit?
No, I think actually parasports will be quite a hit. And so one evidence point that I would point to is that the Paralympics have almost as many TikTok followers as the Olympic Games do.
Wow.
And they've been this social media phenomenon. And so I would love to see a para-athlete come and compete alongside able-bodied athletes and demolish world records, right? And I think that would tell us so much about who we are as humans, as enhanced humans, because the one thing of all my conversations with athletes that para-athletes really understand the concept of enhancement because they went from using metal legs 20 years ago to titanium, now to carbon fiber, right? And they see disability, which in some times is genetic, or they were born with, means that they can't compete in natural sport. And so they have to become enhanced in an engineered way to compete on a level playing field.
Are combat sports a concern within this model genuinely looking at a time where maybe someone gets to such a level where two people going at each other just becomes incredibly dangerous because the power is so extreme?
So interestingly enough, combat sports have a specialist group of physicians called I might get their name wrong, the Association of Combat Sports Physicians. They've developed specific clinical safety protocols for combat sports. And so that's actually a very well-developed area of medicine. Of a group of doctors, are principally based in Las Vegas around UFC and boxing, that really understand these clinical protocols. And I would point to the fact that UFC has moved out of the Olympics drug testing environment. They still do some drug testing, but it's significantly different from the standard that the IOC has set.
How tight have you had to be on legals? You're a lawyer, aren't you, by trade?
By training.
How tight has that had to be throughout this whole process to make sure that you are being responsible as an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always front and center for us. We put the athlete first in everything that we do. And so we want to ensure that athletes are always healthy, safe, well paid, and looked after. And that's crucially important to us.
I think that's a great way into a quick fire.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
What has been the biggest challenge for you throughout this whole process in setting up the Enhanced Games?
If you asked me 3 months ago, I would say it was fundraising. Initially, it was very difficult to fundraise for this company. It was too bold, too audacious. And then after we made the Peter Thiel announcement, every venture capitalist in the world hit us up. And then if you asked me 1 month ago, I would say it was athletes. But then James Magnuson came on board, and now we have a giant pipeline of athletes.
Which athlete do you not have, but you think would be the biggest tipping point to have?
It will be a name brand, publicly recognizable athlete in swimming or track and field. But the problem is that all the name brands that are immediately coming to your mind are very much retired. Yeah. Michael Phelps, for example, right? He's probably not going to make a comeback and break world records.
With the Enhanced Games, I mean, I'm sure you'd welcome it. Is it conversations you have with athletes that are no longer participating to still come out if they are
absolutely.
Very recent?
Yeah, absolutely. James Magnuson recently retired, wants to come back, so
it's a perfect platform.
Yeah, exactly.
What other sport do you think would benefit? And I don't mean Olympic sport. I mean, we talked about a few outside of an Olympic type movement. What other sport do you think would benefit the most from this approach?
FIFA.
So why?
FIFA is just the most broken and corrupt system. It's like so open. Football works, right? The Premier League works, but FIFA does not work. And someone needs to come along and raise a boatload of capital and create a new version of football that does not involve FIFA and create a fresh stack. Because it goes back to the ARPU points in monetization. That if you're some of the greatest brands in the world and you're monetizing $1.50 a year, it's a joke. It's a total joke. And actually, if you look at the annual report for like Man U, they don't turn a profit. Like these giant properties that are worth billions of dollars are loss-making. You have all this data disaggregation problems. And so someone needs to have the balls to come in and create a fresh stack.
If you were to underwrite the biggest risk with the enhanced games today, where you've got funding now, not proved forever by any means, but you have for the foreseeable, what would it be?
Yeah, and the real question is, can we break world records in a safe and effective manner? And if you believe in that, this will be the largest sporting event in the world and a property worth tens of billions of dollars. If not, well, then it's actually like very difficult because we're not actually proving that enhancements make humans better.
Has there been a difference between male and female athlete interest in the project?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually spent a day yesterday with a bunch of athletes, both male and female, and the female enhanced athletes feel much more marginalized and misunderstood and understudied in the scientific literature. So they're very excited by what we are doing. I think the energy among female athletes is higher, in part because of also the financial exploitation that has been suffered through by female athletes.
For you personally, what's been the biggest challenge? Like, as a CEO, scaling with an organization is always hard.
It's finding extraordinary people, right? I've built, I've tried to build nearly 10 companies. I've had 3 successful exits. Life's been pretty good to me. I've worked with the same team over and over, but I need to hire not A talent, not even A+ talent, A++ talent. Like these extreme outliers, because extreme people get extreme results. And that's what I'm looking for. So if anyone's interested, they can just email me, Aron@enhance.org, ARON@enhance.org. And I'm looking for the best people in the world who are absolutely fanatical about what we are doing.
I think that's probably a fantastic place to start.
Yeah.
To stop, sorry.
Yeah.
We've absolutely loved having you in. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, it's been great.
Hear all about it.
Love this. I love a passionate rant. This was great fun.
Thank you. Well, I've enjoyed doing it.